Is it? Can you hear me? No? Test? Got it. All right. Okay. Great. Here we are. Welcome. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining the Meetings and Events Committee session today. My name is Jeff Reyes. I have the esteemed pleasure of being the co-chair for the Meetings and Events with Lisa, who is our chair. But first, I'd like to first introduce our session, and then, but first and foremost, if you can forward the slide. Good. We'd like to thank BWH Hotels for sponsoring the app, and forward one more time. And if you haven't done so, it's Wednesday's day 3, so you probably haven't got the app already, so we'll bypass that. So first and foremost, I'd like to introduce our chair, who will be moderating the session today. And Lisa is the manager of, Lisa Veras, apologies, is the manager of travel operations for Manulife Financial and the new chair of GBTA Meetings and Events Committee. Lisa brings more than 10 years experience in the corporate travel world and 20 plus years planning, designing, and executing a wide variety of live, hybrid, and virtual events. A true strategic and creative thinker, Lisa puts endless effort and time into her partnership with stakeholders and suppliers, ensuring alignment and cohesiveness with planning. She has the ability to stand back and see the bigger picture without forgetting the hidden details, effectively bringing all players together to create an unforgettable experience. So please welcome Lisa, and here you go.
Thank you. Oh, okay, there we go. I barely need this. Welcome, everyone, and thanks for coming out after the big night out. I know I turned in early, but I know not everyone did, so I really appreciate that you're here. And it's kind of nice to have meetings and events at a travel conference, right? And because let's face it, a lot of the travel is for a meeting or event, right? So it's great to partner together. Just a note that AI captioning and language translation, if you want to scan that barcode. All right, I will cover that in a minute. I'm going to actually first introduce our speakers. So happy to have on stage with us, Victoria Simmons, who embarked on her Marriott journey in 2014, seamlessly transitioning through diverse roles across both food and beverage and rooms divisions. Fueled by her passion for exploring new cultures and cuisines, she brings a unique perspective and leadership style, prioritizing team collaboration and engagement. Her unwavering dedication to enhancing the event experience continues to drive her forward, collaborating with various partners within the industry. So welcome, Victoria, and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Mark Awad is Director of Business Development at BB Blanc Inc. With over 17 years in the events industry, Mark has managed trade show and exhibit programs and XM activations for a variety of corporations and reputable brands across North America. With BB Blanc since 2013, his focus has been to educate companies, event managers, and producers on the importance of trusted partnerships and creative audiovisual production value. As an active member of several industry-related associations, Mark often lends himself as an expert panelist at meetings and conferences, so thank you, Mark, and recurrently writes for different blogs and publications. In 2022, he was granted the Meeting Professionals International Toronto Chapter 2021 Literary Award. Welcome, Mark, and thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule and leaving the big night out when you did. Or didn't, yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm still there.
Natasha Botbale is the dynamic M&E leader at Ledcor and brings a whirlwind of expertise and zest for innovation to the 2024 meetings and events scene in the travel industry. With 15 years under her belt, her journey through the ranks of global event management has been fueled by a passion for sustainability, diversity, and the smart integration of technology. Armed with a robust educational background in the corporate and destination event management and experience with leading organizations. Armed with a robust, I'll try that again. Educational background in corporate and destination event management and experience with leading organizations, Natasha is all set to inject fun and professional insights into any discussion, yay, answering from a buyer's angle with an eye on shaping future trends. Welcome, Natasha, and thank you. Okay, so just to look at what we hope to cover today with our questions, Understanding what technology options are available for in-person or hybrid model to engage attendees. We know that this has drastically changed going into the pandemic, coming out of it. How to navigate collaboration with different stakeholders and identifying key priorities to align and achieve overall goals for your event. How to partner with alternative venues to further enhance attendee experiences, and identifying challenges and what's changed during the contracting phase since the pandemic, and share best practices on how to navigate those. So on we go, because we have a full list of questions, and we hope to allow for some Q&A at the end. So if you do have questions, we will hopefully be able to get to those. All right, ready to go?
Let's go.
Okay, all right. And there you go. You can look at their beautiful faces if you don't want to look at them live. All right, Natasha. So once you receive a meeting request, how do you effectively manage the diverse interests and priorities of your internal stakeholders when planning corporate events?
Oh, it is on. That's a great question. For managing the stakeholders and communications, it's important to keep in mind the different reporting styles, like the different communication styles. Everyone communicates differently. So don't email someone that only answers phone calls, and don't phone someone that never picks up their phone. So be aware of how your stakeholders communicate best, and then use that when you're communicating. Like, it's going to make a huge difference. Also, be aware of their expectations. So what is it that they expect from you when you're doing, you're reporting on your event, and when you're building out the event? What do they need to know? What do they care about? What don't they care about? And just keep that alignment when you're speaking with the stakeholders. That's a huge thing. I would also say, that you're not going to make everyone happy 100% of the time. But what you can do, the thing we can control, is making sure that everyone is heard. So as a planner, when you're planning these events, your job is to just make sure that your stakeholders feel heard at the end of the day. And not all stakeholders will have the final say in what happens, but make sure that they feel like they had some input, that they feel like, they have insight into what you're doing, and then keep in mind that, you're not going to make everyone happy 100% of the time.
Fully agree with that. And sometimes as events progress too, stakeholders get added or and different opinions come out, right? So how do you then guide your stakeholders towards achieving your event's collective goals, especially if they maybe change direction partway through?
That's a great question. Because I think that's a common occurrence in many events, 100%. For sure. Oh my goodness. Keep a step ahead, right? Always be a step ahead. Chances are this isn't your first event that you've planned. Yeah. You probably know the flow and what the next steps are. Yeah. And so just be aware of what that is. Help reduce the mental load for those stakeholders, and help them kind of navigate to that next step. Help them, lead them in that direction that you need to go. I like to say sometimes it can feel like you're herding cats. When you're dealing with multiple different levels of stakeholders, but yeah, if you can kind of keep things aligned in the flow, you'll have an easy time. One other way I like to explain it, and I think it's an easy analogy, is as a planner, you're building a puzzle. And once you are able to put together the outside pieces, which is really your job as the planner, is to figure out where the edges are. And you're working with your stakeholders then just to put the masterpiece together, put those inside pieces. Because when you have the edges, you're not going to go outside of those areas. And so you can let them play and let them have some fun with it and keep them engaged during the process. Yeah.
I love that. I love that outside edges thing, which is like the hardest and most challenging. Let's not make any mistake about that. Okay, thank you, Natasha. So, Mark, over to you. Can you let us know how technology has changed? This is a big question over the years, especially during the pandemic and coming out of it. And how important has the experience at events become for attendees?
Thanks, Lisa. Hi, everyone. So technology is always evolving.
Yep.
I've personally found that within our industry, it probably evolves a little slower than other industries, and that's why there's for companies like mine or other technology companies within meetings and events, like we're always urging to try new things, because it's all about the engagement. It's all about the audience experience. So, I think what we learned throughout the pandemic is that content is king. It's once you take away that in-person element and you stick a panel on screen, it's not as fun, especially if you're watching a lot of them all day by yourself in your basement without any light. No, maybe just me. But so for what AV companies do is we provide the tools like that to help you deliver your content. It's big fancy screens, they're only as good as the content that goes on, and really that's what's going to capture the audience and take them on a journey, is the telling your story in interesting ways. But going back to the pandemic, I mean, like for me, technology starts with the event app, of course, the staging and things like that, and then just different experiential elements throughout a different, no two events are the same. And no two organizations have the same objectives. So, like talking about hybrid, let's say, the hybrid, we kind of came out of or maybe still in there, but coming out of the pandemic, we thought, okay, well, that's it. Now every event's going to be hybrid. And what we found was more organizations have adopted a hybrid model versus making every event hybrid. Now they've looked at their overall event portfolio and said, you know what, some events will remain in person, some events will just keep online. And what I've also seen is the technology of having like an online platform which becomes like a community for the whole company. It's an ongoing platform where when you have your in-person meetings, you record the content, you put it on for on-demand for later. There's learning modules, there's areas to ask questions and engage with people in different offices and things like that. So, and then of course, where adding the hybrid element does allow you to reach a broader audience, those that couldn't make it in person or that are in a different country, what have you. Bringing in speakers that, again, there's travel restraints and, so, when you think technology, I get asked a lot, like, what's the next up and coming thing? And it's like, well, you're expecting me to say, well, VR and AI and holograms and things like that, which are great. But I find that they serve a purpose. A lot of them are kind of like, I don't want to say novelty, but if you can add certain elements throughout the event, I think, and I don't want to start rambling, so
Okay.
did I cover?
Yeah.
Did I answer your question?
Can I ask your next question? Because you're actually
I'm
kind of
going to
like,
go on a whole new thing.
yeah.
Maybe.
Did you want to ask Victoria the next question? I'm just kidding. Yeah.
I've had one, can't you tell?
Yeah.
I think I should.
I think we're
water
going to hold off
is-
on the coffee. So you kind of started talking about the next question I was going to ask you, which is what are some of the latest technologies the clients are requesting? Like some of the big bangs and stuff that might be short-lived, but that are being requested now.
Yeah, so that is actually a great segue because I'm not getting asked for the crazy stuff, because typically I think a lot of AV companies are looking to kind of enhance the look of your stage, right? There's been kind of a traditional look to meetings and events, and we found that if you can build a more creative stage, you can certainly add more impact to the content, which again now brings more engagement to your audience. So, what we've found, to be honest, is like listening, silent listening stations. So if you're going to have meeting space on a trade show floor, for sound purposes, you can have a little kind of session happening, and everyone wears headphones, and they're speaking right into your headphone to eliminate sound that way. Or the podcast, like you have downstairs, a little podcast station, because now you're again back to the content. You're adding more experience to this event that you can put online later, and people can tune in if they're not even attending and look at the interviews and listen to the podcasts. Captioning is huge. Digital is king. So for sustainability purposes, going to digital signage as opposed to traditional print, and just being able to have changing content rather than kind of static, signs around the building. And did I mention? I did say captioning, but again, for inclusivity and things like that, to be able to cater to everybody, I think that we're asking for captioning and SI a little bit more than before.
Yeah.
And again, I think that from a technology standpoint, if you are going to have a trade show floor or you are going to have sponsors, encourage them to kind of enhance their sponsorship activation. So a booth is great, and they set up a booth in the hall and they can talk about their business, but maybe they can take over a room and transform that room, and that's where you can add some of that really cool technology. Like
Yeah.
you can, if they're selling a property or a destination, and maybe they do have a couple pairs of the VR glasses, and you can go in there and put them on, and that's them kind of showcasing their brand. But ultimately, it's the little things that that we're
Awesome.
adding. Yeah.
Great, thank you, Mark. Okay, so over to our venue side. Victoria, so you've received an RFP. Now what? How have attendee expectations changed as they relate to events, and what value can meeting professionals do in event design to be able to meet those changing expectations?
Good morning, everyone. Technology, Mark, help. Dead battery.
Not planned.
All right, I'll use this one.
Yeah,
Hello,
leave
good-
marks off. Just kidding.
Thank you, Mark. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Lisa. Definitely a pertinent question. Attendee experience is so critical because without our attendees, there is going to be no events moving forward. So something we look at quite a bit. And I think there are two really main trends that have come about over the last couple of years. And I do think they're both here to stay. The first, I think many of us in this room may have heard, it's about attendees wanting more of an experience when they come to a conference. Gone are the days that people are happy with a breakfast break, lunch break with a speaker or presentation all day. People really want something more unique now. And we're really trying to look during the planning phase at how we can integrate that even from a simple level like your meeting room setup. Many of you might have noticed that there is mixed seating in this room to give people different options instead of just having theater style or just having rounds. You have that ability to change things up and to really hone in on what that specific delegate would like. We're also looking at where we're hosting different functions. Why do you need to stay in the same conference room that you were in all day to have dinner? Can we offer a unique meeting space? Can we look at crazy things that we've never thought of before, like dinner on a tennis court or a reception in a parking garage? Because it just creates that unique experience for that attendee that they're really craving. We're also looking, similar to what Mark was saying, about how every group is a bit different and how can we personalize the experience to that group. So is that group into wellness? Can we look at different activities that we can integrate? What are their values? What are their themes? It could be simple menu or cocktail selections that we're integrating with their logos and little things like that that help connect the experience for each of the delegates.
That's awesome. And I think, so that's a perfect segue into what I'm going to address with Natasha, because we know that there's so much communication that goes on between the vendors and the stakeholders. So Natasha, share some best practices with us, please, for ensuring clear communication, understanding contract terms and between event organizers and vendors, and just how do you kind of not only negotiate, but just ensure that communication doesn't break down?
Yeah, for sure. And we do communicate a lot with our partners on suppliers and hoteliers, all of it. Oh my goodness, the amount of communication.
Too much.
Right? I would say, it really does start off with that RFP, like building out a really strong request for proposal and sending that into your venue is huge. Like be detailed. I try to be as detailed as possible and as transparent as possible. I think that's a huge thing, is that transparency piece when you're building the RFP, because if I come to you and I don't have a budget, where do we begin, right? So be transparent on where you want to go with it, what your expectations are, what you're not okay with. Add that to the RFP. That's a definite. And your timeline and your decision timeline. Like how long do we have for us to make a decision on the proposal once you send it in? So that's where that starts.
Right.
After that, it would be when it comes to negotiations, remember that you're dealing with a human. we're all human. And I think sometimes we forget that. So I always like,
100%.
right? And I always like to say, you know, we all have our KPIs. We all have, you know, our bosses to go to, and we all have our goals. And so
we all communicate differently.
yes, right? The communication piece again. So at the end of the day, it's, you know, how can we create this win-win in the contract? And speaking of contracts, huge thing, read the contract.
Really?
Yes. And read it with detail, right? So I find a lot of times it's just glanced over and it's like, oh, it's a venue contract or it's a supplier's contract, right? For like AV even. And I don't understand half these things in it when you're reading it if you're not used to reading it, and you just sign it.
Yeah.
Ask questions, right? Always ask questions. And even if it's the same venue you've gone to many times, still read the contract.
Yeah.
So never re-sign a contract without reading it.
Good tip, and worth the time. Thanks, Natasha. Mark, so what strategies do you employ to create a realistic budget that maximizes value without compromising quality of the event? In other words, how do you create a Rolls-Royce event on a Pinto budget? Does everybody in here know what a Pinto is?
Yeah, no,
Jeff?
Hello.
Yeah, okay, good. Jeff, can you
that's not
explain?
going to happen, Lisa. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You used a great analogy. It's like the car analogy. You can't walk into a Rolls-Royce dealership and with a Toyota budget and say, but there are strategies, definitely. What we do is, I mean, first and foremost, like your supplier partners, they're there to help you. Like they really do want your event to be successful. The same for your audiovisual partners. Like definitely bring them into the discussion earlier, into the planning process. They can help you establish your budget, or at least give you, like you said, realistic ballparks, so that you can now, design your budget around these findings, right? A lot of times, the AV is the cost is just based on the size of your event. And you really just have to establish your necessities versus your nice to haves. So our job is obviously first and foremost, we need to make sure that the content is clear, the audience has full access to all the education, they can see, they can hear, and that's that's the must. When you're looking to kind of enhance and add those bells and whistles, I guess you can say. I mean, I'm gonna have to go back to content, right? There are ways that you can just change what's on screen, and it's gonna make the event seem more
Impact.
exciting. But again, leaning on your partners, I think when you start going over the nice to haves, if you have a good partner, and it's in their best interest to try new things, they'll maybe throw some things in complimentary, because that way, if it works and it has great impact, you can now go back to your stakeholders and say, look, they did this complimentary or gave us a huge discount on this, but let's put this in the budget next year, because look how it increased the engagement or just the overall experience. So that's really the strategy, is just lean on your partners, talk to them. Like you said, transparency is key, and it's in our best interest to help you and your event evolve through creative technology and new innovations and different things, because we know that they work. So when we're suggesting a different type of screen or adding an extra monitor, things like that, it's always for the betterment, if that's a word, of the event.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes it's like you said, asking the questions, making little small improvements to make those creatives just a little bit more impactgetting
Just thought of something too, which is, but also is
Happy to help.
Yeah, I'm not done, Lisa. No, I'm just kidding. Just getting started over here. Creating sponsorship opportunities, right? So that where you can actually now enhance the event, and getting people to sponsor an area is also a great way to add some wow factor without the budget.
Yeah. And I think people come in and sometimes shoot for the stars, right? But with that small budget. So we do rely heavily on our AV partners to sort of say, you could just do this. You could set the room up in a circle. You could make it more interactive and more engaging, right? So great.
Yeah.
Okay, over to you, Victoria. Have you got a mic that works?
I think so.
Okay. All right, good. Otherwise, just take marks. Can you share instances where you've successfully navigated, boy, and I went home early, navigated contracting challenges in the current environment, and offer us some insights and practices that we could learn from?
All right. Well, I hate to go back to the post-pandemic, trends and errors that we're seeing, but there has been some shifts in society that really has led to a couple of contracting challenges recently. So the first really relates to how we contract room blocks. I think a lot of times before, many of our delegates wanted to come in the day of a conference, leave the day it ended, and we structured our room blocks based on that, with our peak nights having the most and our shoulder nights tapering off. But what we've really seen is more of a blended traveler coming to our events, and this has meant that there's been a lot more demand for those shoulder nights. And for those contracts that were negotiated quite some time ago, it's posing a lot of challenges when you only have such a limited number. So a couple things we're doing on property to assist our clients is, one, having that conversation early on and being, I hate to say the word, but transparent with what the situation is. Do we have available rooms? Are they at the same price? What can we do to assist you in navigating that? And does your group have that demand? So really educating those meeting planners that, hey, we've seen this trend, because some don't know if they've only had their first conference back, but we have been seeing those trends, and it is in your best interest, or how can you get a pulse on your group and understand if that will be needed and what we can do to help. The second contracting challenge we've really seen relates to food and beverage minimums. As we know, we had this small thing called inflation over the last couple of years, and as much as we write contracts and we add that, that 3% annually, or at least that used to be what we were adding, a lot of our minimums were based on our desired food and beverage programs. So I know I want breakfast, break, and lunch that day, and a dinner on the third day, and this is a minimum that should roughly cover it. Well, now, 3 years later, when people are coming in, they're realizing that, hey, I can't get all those meal periods that I've been saying we're going to get for that price. And that's tough to have to go back to your organization and deliver that news. So one, it's sending that meeting planner that information, i.e. our new prices, as soon as possible. And then beyond that, how can we assist them in finding a middle ground? Can we do customized menus? So yes, you still have lunch, but maybe it's not 3 proteins. Is there an opportunity, and I like that Mark said sponsorships, because can we work with any of our local providers? Can we get a winery in Niagara to sponsor or to offer at a lower rate, and then we could offer corkage services? What can we do to help mitigate a little bit of that? Prices is huge. We're also really looking at the guarantees. We're in an era of sustainability, thank goodness, and oftentimes we get nervous, and so we guarantee, that 600 across the board. But how often do 600 really come? I mean, I work in a venue and I see how often we guarantee 600-person dinner, and 50 of them have decided to go out as friends. So where can we find that balance, and how can we educate our meeting planners or be more confident, I should say? Because not only is it going to save them money and help, minimize that minimum, but it's also really, like I said, in that lens of trying to be socially responsible, which I think everyone wants. So.
Yeah, good point. I was going to say that about that sort of, we always we didn't want anyone to go hungry, right, at the events, because it's all about the food when it comes down to it, like you measure your meetings on kilograms gained, so, or I used to. Thank you, Victoria, that's great. So Natasha, back to sort of that employee experience and engagement. What innovative methods have you brought into some of your events?
So I'll
we
actually,
only have, no, I'm just
oh
kidding.
no. Okay. Well, I'm going to actually just start with the 2 things that both of you have said here on sponsorship in that regards, or bringing in your external stakeholders to that point. When it comes to building engagement, lean on them, for what it is you want to build. So if you have an idea, or maybe your internal stakeholders have an idea, and you want to build that out, see who you can loop in. Talk with your venue, talk with your suppliers, see who they might be able to help loop in, and build out that engagement. So I would start with that. The other thing is active breaks, right? So that's like a no-cost activity. So just have active breaks. Build in intention for that movement period. Don't squeeze in, oh, you get a 5-minute bathroom break. Add that extra 10 minutes and let them actually grab that cup of coffee,
Call home.
move around, call home. Yeah, exactly. And play with, really when you're talking engagement, play with your audio visual. Lowest cost way to really improve engagement is to partner strongly with your AV team, because audio and visual are two of our highest sensory points. So if you can, light the room up, play with the sound, play with the the mapping on the walls, even anything like, I don't know if you've seen the petite chef dinners, but those are just audio visual. It's literally a white cloth, a plate, and you come and you watch the little chef do his thing. Good old mapping. But yeah, play with your audio visual. Yeah, that would be,
Great.
that would be a nice low cost. I don't know if I have time for a quick little story on that, but
Sure.
I once had a conference where we had a few hundred people in the room. It was an all day, like a very, very long conference. We decided to hire 2 dancers, just 2, to hide in the crowd. And just before like the end of the first break, we had those dancers, after everybody sat down, get up, the music came on, and they did 2 songs, literally 4 minutes of your time. The room was buzzing for the rest of the day. Super simple entertainment,
Amazing.
4 minutes out of the day, energy was lifted right back up. So simple like
Awesome.
that.
Love it. Quick hit, right? And hide them in the crowd. We did a flash mob in Yorkville one time, and it was raining because we were trying to do it at Union Station, and somebody didn't get the permit. So we were surrounded by security and police as we're getting up with our music and stuff, and we're like, are you kidding me? Like, I had this all planned. But anyway, so we did it in Yorkville in the rain, and it was perfect. In fact, we did it twice. Yeah, it was so much fun. Okay, yeah. Mark, how does it all come together? Like, what does the perfect event with audiovisual look like? Oh, like,
The
one
results?
minute. Give it to me in 1 minute.
Flash mob.
Right? Totally. Yeah. There'll be one
Perfect.
later.
That's,
Yeah.
I don't even know how to answer that. The perfect
Do you want me to
event-
read what you wrote here?
Please? No. I'm going to, I really, I guess it must be my marketing background, but it really does, it's the content, right? There's ways to kind of like you said, light up the room a bit. Organizations should definitely, lean on their marketing department for their events and create more impactful visuals and videos. And you want to get people right when they get into the room. You got to get their attention. It's like just like anything else. So I don't know what the perfect event is. That's to me, it's something different for 2 different people, 2 different organizations. What they consider perfect. I'd say we've done a good job if transitions were all hit and smooth and no technical errors, or everything worked. If people took out their phones and said, wow, look at that stage, and the presenters thanked us because the support of the presenter, so as they're getting prepared and reviewing their notes in the speaker ready room or putting their lav on, showcasing their content with the highest impact, and that's really it, is we're helping you tell your story. So if it went smoothly and on time and was memorable and creative, that you're proudly representing your brand, and you want to post online, and it's going to draw attention and try to get more butts in the seats next year, I think that we did a great job.
And I think if you're throwing in those, like the apps and the LED screens outside and LCD screens, just LED? LED screens. that is like seamless, right? Like it works. The app works, that, you've got support on site if something goes wrong with it, but that, because then people will use it. Because I remember using the app years ago, and it was like so clunky, and yeah, people were like, yeah, where's my paper agenda? So it's, I think just that sort of giving that that feel, even though we're all pedaling like crazy underwater, right? Just making sure that it seems like a nice flow, right? Okay, Victoria, final question before I give you all a final thought to think about. Something, excuse me, that is so important to all of us in this industry. How do we make our events more accessible and inclusive? Oh, I'm good. I have water here. Maybe I'll have some.
You know, firstly, I am very happy that as an industry, we are really focusing in on inclusion more and more every day. And that's definitely how we make our events more accessible. From the planning phase, I mean, Mark mentioned closed captioning.
Yep.
You mentioned a couple different items that we can do from a technology standpoint to integrate it in. But I do think it's important to remember the basics and how we can make it more inclusive by just re-looking at our day-to-day processes. So in my space, as an example, we talk about how we program an event and where we do our breakout rooms. And oftentimes our clients have been on site once or twice for a site, and they rely on a map to understand, for example, how long it takes to get from a general session over to a breakout room. And they might assume based on that map, okay, I'll leave about a 5-minute gap. But in actuality, there's 2 elevators that has to be taken to get over to that breakout room. And that's really going to take more like 10, 15 minutes. And so we should be advising that to our clients, that they're building that into the actual program and not putting people in a situation where all of a sudden they arrive to the meeting room and it's already started. So really looking at those basics is key. We're also pairing with our local suppliers and making sure our clients have a full list of suppliers who are able to offer different items, like programs that are written in Braille or in any other type of language, or some sensory fidget toys, which are becoming more and more relevant. You know, the company I work for is doing a lot of research on the neurodivergent community, and really that's anyone whose brain functions differently than what is classified as normal, which I think is most of us in this room. But you know, there's a lot of space there to really add elements to a program in ways that we would have not thought of before, such as having a quiet room. Perhaps letting our delegates know when there's going to be a big noise or many lights in that program, because that can be jarring for a lot of people. So really leaning into those elements, I think, has been great progress. With that said, I think we all need to be honest with ourselves and acknowledge that we still have a far way to go, and we really need to continue to push the envelope as detailers, as clients, to make sure that we are holding each other accountable and really addressing these subjects as we sign the RFP or detail the event. Because if we are not part of that, we will not continue to progress. So, yeah.
I love that. I love that. Thank you. Okay, I do have a final question for all of you. It's the same question, and you will have about a minute, Mark, to answer. So can you share an experience that you've worked on or planned that was most impactful to you, and why? Natasha.
For sure. So without going into too much detail, because a minute's not that long, so I'm happy to answer later. An event that was most impactful for me that I was involved with, it was in the Caribbean. Can't go wrong there. A small group of women for a retreat for a traumatic experience. So they were coming together to heal through something. And there was, sorry, Mark, no audio visual involved in this event. Right?
Not needed.
Private villas, chef, everything you could think of just to keep it safe, a safe space. The organizers were so nervous that nobody would communicate with each other, that they wouldn't participate because of the experience these women had gone through. At the end of the day, at the end of the event, we're still they still communicate with each other. They're still best friends. All these women came together because of something that impacted them. They'd never met before. And years later, we're talking, I think this was 2017, they're still really good friends.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Just-
So nothing. You took away the bells and whistles and you just gave them a safe space. And you told me this story last night and I was like, I had goosebumps. And it was like, so thank you for sharing. Mark, 30 seconds.
Okay. So luckily, I don't actually work on the events at my company. I'm in business development. So I definitely seen them because
Yeah.
I know our clients, so I'll go and I'll see how everything is going and make sure everything's good. And we do amazing work, but I don't want to talk about that. So I've also attended quite a few really cool events. I'll even kind of call out Evan there, but Amex, we're a preferred vendor, and they do a pretty cool annual vendor conference that moves around the U.S. I've been to HubSpot's user conference, which is kind of, if you know, it's very similar to Salesforce there. And I think that they're trying to kind of emulate. I think all the software companies are trying to emulate like Dreamforce.
Yes.
That's kind of like the epic event. But one that really stands out is I'm a member of MPI, and you know Meeting Professionals International, the Toronto chapter, and in 2018 or 2017, I can't remember. They used to do every chapter would have their annual conference, but I think it was 2018, they amalgamated 3 chapters, Toronto, Montreal, and Ottawa, and they were to have their annual conference together. And it would go from Ottawa to Montreal to Toronto and just keep going like that. The very first year just stood out. Everything, like you talk about the perfect event, the stage was amazing. The company that, I'm not going to say their name, but the company that did it, they did like a huge custom set, and it was like all different shapes, and they mapped it. And therefore all the sponsors were able to really do the coolest content.
Awesome.
They had great speakers. And to what I was saying before is get your sponsors to give them a space, like a room to kind of change. I think it was Destination Saskatoon. If they're in the room, I apologize if I got it wrong, but they brought Escape Room all the
very
way
cool.
from Saskatoon, and so
Very cool.
you get to sign up and you get an
Nice.
hour with other
Yeah.
delegates, and you're in this escape room, and it just
Awesome.
really stood out to me. They did a great job just engaged, because again, it was a mixture of experience, education,
Right.
cool, fun, interesting. Yeah,
And
it
the
was just-
unexpected.
Yeah, and I think for an event that's for event people, like we really need to step it up.
Yeah.
And when I sponsor events
Yeah,
for the
because we're not
AV
critical at all.
well, not even that. I think when you're sponsoring anything, you better be doing it more than
Yeah.
just to get your name
Yeah.
up there, right? Like
Yeah.
this is an opportunity to showcase your best work.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's the ultimate time to do it, is when you have a room full of event professionals.
100%. Victoria, same question.
All right. For me, it's all about the attendee experience, creating a unique event that no one's been to before. So we held an event that was entirely on our lower level of the hotel, which was typically a space that only our team goes, and we transform spaces like food stores into an area with reception items. The pastry kitchen was now all of a sudden your dessert station, and really being part of something that was so different and watching that experience through the attendees' eyes was, for me, something special. So that was mine.
Thank you. That's awesome.
Short and sweet.
Very cool. And they took the service elevator down, right?
They did.
Yeah, that's so cool. Okay, so we are pretty much at time. I'm just going to just review what I hope are the learning outcomes and what you will leave this room with. And if you want to ask some questions, like we'll hang around, or they'll hang around, our experts. So hopefully you take away with you some best practices to align all stakeholders, suppliers, and venues to ensure key priorities and objectives are achieved. Understand the evolution of technology to further enhance events and collaborate effectively with all stakeholders to achieve a common goal. Identify strategies to meet the evolving attendee expectations by creating unique and personalized experience-based events and networking opportunities. And finally, recognize opportunities to collaborate with suppliers to execute a more inclusive and accessible event. So thank you very much again for coming, for spending the first hour of your conference with us, if you weren't at the buyer to buyer talk. Yes, and thank you to our presenters, Victoria, Mark, and Natasha. It was awesome, and thank you to Jeff and the rest of our committee. We can take a couple questions if you like. I've got some mic runners in the room. Hi, yeah.
Actually, I have two questions. One, we have meetings across the world, and very often when we ask for AV, the AV is the hotel will have the only company they work with from an AV perspective. So we don't know how good the company is, and wondering if there's any advice you can give about that topic. So should we trust? Should we go out, look for our own AV companies? How do we make that relationship more global with AV companies? That's always a concern for us because we don't know. Okay, we will have to trust the hotel. We don't know how good is this company, etc.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's in our best interest as event professionals to definitely do our research and do our homework. You have definitely a very big task, which is to plan events globally. So you're going to come across a lot of different companies, which is a lot of work for you to try to like how do you research an AV company, and did everyone hear her question? Yeah. So look, if there's a fairly known hotel chain and they have an AV company in house, I would put my money on that they're pretty good, and that their job is to represent the hotel partnership and to represent all its clients. So, but I think it's all about personal preference. You want to, if you're always in a different country, it's going to be hard to maintain that type of relationship. But it depends on what you're looking to do. I would say it's worth just searching locally and seeing if there's other companies, and you see a few pictures and you read a few things on their website, and engage them for a quote for sure, and engage the in-house as well. And it's all about time, right? If you have time to do that.
That's oh my God.
Yeah.
So every country we're gonna have to go through that same research. This is what we're trying to avoid. Just have that trust in a global company and say, okay, we trust them. They're good. Use them here. Use them there. Even if it's not every single country, but
I'll give you a pretty good answer here, which is just like everything in this business, it's about people. So AV, it's only as good as the people that are operating it. And so I would recommend getting a person you trust and having that person be your liaison, and that person would travel with the event. So no matter what AV you're getting locally, you've got that one, perhaps it's a technical director or a project manager, and that is the person that is going and really just kind of helping you navigate the technology and the AV that you need in all the different cities, because that person's going to be that consistency. You know that they've got your back. They know how to run a show. They know how to talk the AV language to all the local parties. So really at that point, and that person can even go out and get quotes on your behalf, and it takes something off your plate as well. So I would say whoever's if you have a main partner, whether you do most of your stuff in the States, you may have someone there or someone in Canada, and if you don't, you can ask me and I'd be happy to recommend some technical I'm not even saying for my company, just some really good freelance technical directors that's their business.
We're going to try and grab another question if
Sorry,
we can. That's
sorry,
okay.
I just
That's
wanted
okay.
to
Adam,
really give
did you?
a piece of advice.
It's okay.
Just very quickly, I know we got to go, but just into perspective, I have the luxury of working on both the BT side and the meetings and events right now. If a client and a hotel, I don't need a mic. If a client and a hotel
He doesn't need.
want to directly deal with the company, right? Okay, but are working with a third party, how do they develop that relationship with you, going through the third party? I'm looking at you, Mark.
Okay.
I'm talking in general.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
How does the hotel deal with the third party, right?
Yeah. Can be a challenge. Yeah. And yeah.
Working with that relationship.
Yeah. And it really depends on the venue too a lot, right? Yeah.
Hotel, we're fighting for the same business, okay? How do I get that extra?
Right. And I think you can meet walls. Sorry, Mark, if I'm jumping in here, but
I was.
just a very, very, very quick story. So I worked for a pharma for 22 years, did a lot of meetings and events, and we partnered actually with BB Blanc. But it was a long time before I could even get them to entertain the idea of a preferred partner. Once we did one or two events, and in fact, they did them pro bono, no charge to us. They knocked it out of the park. And honestly, it was just that trust and it's a long-standing relationship now. And they are so good out at partnering with those hotels, because you can go to a hotel where it's a plug-and-play room and you don't touch their stuff. And that's good. They know that. They're going to work the main stage for us, and they're going to call that show, right? So it is a lot. That's all part of that negotiation, right? And again, I think it's good, to Mark's point about that person, having that person that you trust that can navigate those conversations with you, right? And you are going to meet venues that are like, hell no, you're not going to bring that in. Sorry, I shouldn't say that. You can't bring them on site, right? So, yeah, it's definitely a challenge at times. think we're being kicked out, but. Yes, absolutely. We can stay and chat with you.
I didn't. What do you think he meant by third party? Do you think he meant the book?
And our resources, which will be on the uploaded to the hub shortly.
So sometimes venues get nervous about having.
Please fill out the session survey at the end. Thank you.
Oh, that's what he meant.
Thank you, everyone.
Sure.